Oh my god.
The most disturbing Bigfoot encounters often begin with something you can hear or barely see. A thunderous roar breaks the silence at a remote camp, while glowing eyes watch another explorer from between the trees. Were these ordinary animals or something far stranger? On April 25, 2026, the YouTube channel Tregs Travels shared an outdoor fishing story from the remote Uinta Mountains of Utah. The channel focuses on outdoor travel and fishing adventures, and this trip began as a simple escape into nature. But that day would leave him with a terrifying experience he would never forget. Back in 2021, the narrator was under a lot of stress, so his friend Breck invited him on a fishing trip in the Uinta Mountains. Together with their dog Cosmo, they hiked about 5 miles through rough forest and rocky terrain to reach a remote alpine lake.
We crossed over kind of this boulder field for a while, and then we had to drop down, like I said, into where the lake was. Go along the side of the lake with the big rock slide. There's quite a bit of open space for fishing water there, so we kind of just walked along. When we got to the lake, we could see something red from the lake. It looked like a tent material, so we thought maybe somebody was camping across.
Eventually, they reached a clear mountain lake. One side was bordered by an open rock slide, while the opposite shore was flatter and covered by thick forest. They chose the open rocky side for fishing. Soon after arriving, they noticed a small red object across the water. From a distance, it looked like part of a tent, so they initially ignored it.
We set up at the lake, we start fishing, and it's just one of those days that you dream about. Like I said, this was a new species of fish for us, and so we were just so excited to be there. Fish after fish after fish, and the Arctic grayling were long and slender and a big dorsal fin and looked like mermaids when they moved through the water. It was really cool. It was really, honestly, there gets to be a point where it's just like almost unreal. And so we're just catching fish. I think it was just kind of like the relief of being outside and being in nature, and then just the fun of catching the fish. And I have brought my GoPros along. I generally like to film, and I know I'm gonna get a little bit of flack, but I had just turned and we were still just kind of fishing. My buddy, and then his dog was kind of between us. His dog just kind of kept going back and forth. And all of a sudden, there was like this boulder. It was so much bigger than any type of rock that I could have like picked up and thrown myself, but it comes from the flat side across the lake from us.
Both men began catching and became excited, talking loudly and enjoying the experience. Then the mood changed. Without warning, a large rock suddenly flew out from the forested side of the lake and crashed into the water near them. It felt less like an accident and more like a warning to stop making noise. Unsure who or what had thrown it, both men watched the opposite shore carefully, but nothing appeared. Even Cosmo became tense and kept staring toward the same area. The two decided to investigate further. They remembered the red object they had noticed earlier and began wondering if the warning had come from campers on the opposite shore.
Over there, we took our fly rods with us, and we just kind of walked our way around to that side. Like, you could see everything that was around you. When you got over there, the trees were fairly dense, and I couldn't see really anything that was going on around us as we walked around that side of the lake. Just kind of unsettled, pretty unsettled. He was acting really strange and didn't really want to be on that side of the lake either. So we kind of walked around, again, very dense trees. I couldn't really see, felt like I was just on high alert. I didn't know if a bear or something was, I don't know. Dude, I really didn't know what was going on. Where we saw the red when we got there, and it wasn't really what either of us were expecting. When we walked over, there was a men's t-shirt, kind of like a men's tank top, and then a woman's tank top, like a Nike, a balled up roll of socks. There was a gallon jug of water, and we didn't see anybody. There wasn't a tent, there wasn't a camp set up, we didn't see any people.
Despite their concern, they decided to walk around the lake and investigate. When they reached the red object, there was no tent and no camper. Instead, they found several items scattered on the ground. There was a men's tank top, a red women's Nike dry fit shirt, rolled up socks, and a 1-gallon water container that was still full. They could find no obvious sign of anyone nearby.
We decided we were going to work our way back around to the rock slide so that we could at least see. I didn't like being on that side because I felt like somebody talked for a little bit. We didn't see or hear anything else weird, and so we actually decided to keep fishing for a little bit, for a few more hours, and we had fun. We had a good time. There was eventually, like maybe an hour or two later, like a mom and a son that came up to the lake, and they were trail runners. They had just barely got there. So they kind of went past us and then headed off back down the trail. But that was it. Those were the only other people that we saw.
Uncomfortable with the situation, they returned to the open side of the lake. Eventually, Breck and the narrator packed their equipment and made the hike back to their vehicle without another incident. It was only the next day that he realized how close he might have come to something dangerous. The warning-like act of throwing a rock matched reports often associated with Bigfoot, especially in the very area where he had been, a place known as Bigfoot Basin. A hidden person could explain the rock, while natural movement might explain some sounds. But the rock's apparent size, Cosmo's reaction, and the abandoned belongings together make the encounter harder to dismiss. Do you think someone was hiding across the lake, or was something else warning them to stay away? On September 13th, 2024, D from D's Dark Adventures, a channel centered on dark and unsettling investigations, explored a remote farmhouse surrounded by an enormous cornfield. The family living there had contacted her after experiencing several disturbing incidents, including unexplained voices, movement inside the corn, and unusually aggressive behavior from dogs that were normally calm. Wanting to find out what might be happening, Dee began investigating the property at night. The cornfield seemed to stretch far into the darkness. Tall stalks formed dense walls around narrow paths, creating an almost maze-like environment. The area was unusually quiet, except for occasional rustling somewhere among the plants. Its isolation made the atmosphere even more uncomfortable, while the darkness limited how far Dee could see. Carrying a flashlight and her investigative equipment, Dee carefully entered the field. As she moved farther away from the farmhouse, she soon noticed the first unusual detail.
Okay, something laid out a pile of corn here. I mean, I don't see deer carrying a bulk in their mouth and bringing it here, but it's a little bulk for what I'm trying to say it is, I guess. Woo! Get one of my new lights. Check this out. The one's already turned on. Dang. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Look at that. What was that? I'm hearing a howling. It's not those dogs. It's coming from that way. Those dogs can't go that far. They're on a restraint thing. Okay.
Small piles of corn were scattered across the ground in what appeared to be an intentional arrangement. Dee stopped to examine them, but there was no obvious explanation for how they had gotten there or what had created them. The discovery immediately made the area feel more unsettling. Not long afterward, faint noises began coming from somewhere inside the field.
Airplane.
At first, they sounded like ordinary movements that could easily have been caused by leaves, branches, or wildlife. But as Dee continued deeper into the corn, the sounds became harder to ignore. A high-pitched chirping noise began carrying through the stalks. It grew more noticeable and seemed to come from different directions, creating the impression that something might be moving around her. Dee became increasingly uneasy. As she swept her flashlight across the field, she briefly noticed dark shapes moving between the tall stalks.
Oh my god! What is this? I don't know what this fucking saw, dude. Screw that, screw that, screw that. What was that? Dude. What was that? I can't do this. No, I can't do this, guys. That dog. I hear whistling.
They were difficult to see clearly and disappeared almost immediately whenever she pointed the light toward them. Each time the movement vanished, only the rustling of corn remained. Then Dee noticed another disturbing detail. Some sections of the field had been pushed down, leaving flattened areas where something appeared to have moved through the corn. One spot looked as though something large had been lying there. Paths of disturbed vegetation continued farther into the darkness.
I don't want to damage any property. Look, there's something was laying here. Something big was laying right there.
The discovery raised an obvious question. Was an animal responsible? Was someone else inside the field? Or was something entirely different moving through the corn? As Dee continued investigating, the sounds became increasingly intense. The earlier chirping was joined by sharper noises. Stalks snapped, leaves rustled, and cracking sounds seemed to come from several directions. With visibility severely limited, Dee could not identify what was causing them. The dense corn made it nearly impossible to see more than a short distance ahead, while the continuing movement gave her the growing impression that something nearby was watching her.
More deer droppings. Oh, I messed up my light, guys. Hang on. Hold on, I'm sorry. Technical difficulty. This dude, I'm done. I can't. No. No, 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 no. No.
Eventually, the situation became too uncomfortable to continue. The noises became more unpredictable, and movement inside the corn appeared increasingly noticeable. What had started as an uneasy investigation turned into a powerful instinct that she needed to leave. Unable to determine what was happening, Dee decided to retreat from the field. She made her way back towards safety, leaving behind the unexplained sounds, flattened corn strange piles, and shadowy movement she had witnessed throughout the investigation. By the following day, Dee was still trying to understand what had happened. Dense vegetation can make sound direction and movement surprisingly difficult to judge, especially when visibility is limited. That could explain some of Dee's experience, but not necessarily everything she witnessed. What do you think was moving through that cornfield? The video shows a father who works as a record representative casually walking through the forest with his daughter Liana. What begins as an ordinary family moment soon takes a strange and unsettling turn. As the father films Liana walking ahead of him, a large figure can be seen moving quietly through the background. Its movement is subtle, but it clearly stands apart from the surrounding trees and vegetation. The figure appears to have a human-like shape, although it seems much larger than an average person. Its dark body is partly obscured by the dense forest, making it difficult to see clearly. Neither the father nor his daughter appears to notice anything unusual. They continue walking peacefully through the woods, completely unaware of the figure behind them. It is only later, when the family reviews the footage at home, that they realize something strange may have been captured. Watching the clip again, they notice the shadowy figure moving through the background. They examine the footage more closely and begin comparing its apparent size and walking pattern with those of a normal person. To them, the figure seems unusually tall and bulky. Its overall appearance and movement appear closer to common descriptions of Bigfoot, the legendary creature often associated with remote forest regions. The discovery leaves the family both surprised and curious. The footage is not clear enough to determine exactly what the figure was. Even so, the sighting adds another mysterious example to the long-running debate surrounding the possible existence of Bigfoot. Objects partly hidden by trees can appear larger when there is no clear size reference, making distance and height difficult to judge. Was this really Bigfoot, an unusually large person, or simply a misleading perspective? A man travels deep into the Canadian Rockies to camp alone at a secluded location known as Spirit Camp. The area was once used by local indigenous communities as a sacred burial ground, but in more recent times, even elders have reportedly stayed away. Stories of disturbed graves, strange voices coming from the trees, and unexplained sightings have added to the unsettling reputation surrounding the location. Determined to find out what might happen there, the man spends 4 days and nights completely alone at Spirit Camp. Unlike many YouTubers, he does not narrate what is happening or constantly react to the surroundings. Instead, he allows the camera to record quietly, capturing events as they unfold without commentary. At first, nothing seems unusual. Wildlife moves naturally around the campsite, and the first part of the stay passes without any obvious disturbance. Everything appears peaceful and ordinary. That changes on the second night. As darkness settles over the forest, a powerful roar suddenly breaks through the silence. The sound is extremely deep and unusually loud, seemingly unlike the animals normally associated with the region. It has a strange resemblance to the roar of a lion, despite lions not living in the Canadian Rockies. Shortly afterward, another sound comes from the woods. A sharp knocking noise echoes between the trees, almost as if something heavy is striking against the trunks. Similar sounds are often linked to alleged Bigfoot encounters, including woodnox howls and strange nighttime vocalizations. Still, there may be simpler explanations. Some viewers believe the roar came from an elk or bear, although neither seems to fully match the recording. Dense forests and mountain terrain can also distort sound. So was this just an unusual animal call or something unidentified near Spirit Camp? On December 7, 2018, the YouTube channel Squatch Watchers shared a strange case from an area now inside South Mountain State Park. The channel focuses on Bigfoot research and unexplained activity in remote forests. This time, the team met Joe Hunt, a longtime local hunter who knew the area well and often used trail cameras. But one photograph from those woods left him with a mystery he could not easily explain.
I'm Joe Hunt. I live around here for several years now, and I was hunting one day and had my camera up. Some says it was a bear and some says it's not. So, it's just up to us to decide what it is. I'd like to have seen it.
Well, we're here to try to hopefully shed some light on that.
Joe explained that he had lived in the area for many years and often hunted there. During one trip, he placed a trail camera in the woods. When he later checked the camera, one image immediately stood out.
When you saw the picture, the rough picture that I've got on my phone so far, what did you think?
In my mind, what gives it away, there's no way to me that it's a bear. With the arm, Rex walk, I guess, and that's was just a huge bicep. To me, I can see it. It looks like.
When Rex showed me the picture and asked us to come up, I couldn't wait to talk to you, Joe. And first and foremost, the area that the picture was taken.
The photo showed a large dark figure moving past the camera. Its body appeared upright and its shape did not clearly match the animals Joe usually saw in the area. To understand what they were looking at, the Squatch Watchers team examined the image more closely.
We've got another member that's just joined us, and we're going to introduce our audience to Delbert real quick. Delbert, will you tell everybody who you are?
Well, my name is Delbert Oil, and I've lived here all my life in the Golden Valley area, and I've hunted all my life in some of the most remote areas that man could be in, all right?
The audience is going to get a chance to see this here in a little bit. 3 foot off the ground and took a picture of the foot of this creature only. But this foot right here, the ball of the heel, okay, just so you guys know, our joint's right there on top of our toes. There is a joint in this foot, I believe, that puts this creature in the primate family. I have looked at this picture now for almost a week and a half, 2 weeks, and when you take away all the fuzz and all the outlining and you actually put a structure to it, this is his arm right here going up. All this in the background here is just the sweeping motion of but I can clearly see the arm. I can see the clenched hand. He actually is carrying his hand clenched like this right here. The butt area. This is a huge, huge creature. And everyone's looking at the head up here. This is kind of a blur in the fact that it is actually lurched over in a locomotion. You know, it's walking pretty quick through this area. Get a really good shot of this here in a little bit, and then we're going to really let you guys take a look at this.
That's where my grandmother was raised at, where that picture was taken.
That's
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Did she ever have any stories of?
I've never
It's probably waist high,
4 feet maybe.
probably 4 foot, something like that, I guess.
He is probably 12 to 16 feet away from the camera for the picture to be taken. If you could go to the exact spot and stand there, I mean, you know, and kind of get some direct points, you could start doing measurements and figuring out exactly. I'm going to go ahead and it's at least 7 feet tall.
And I estimated 450, 500 pounds.
Oh, it's easy,
yeah,
450 pounds. It's easy, yeah.
They showed it to Delbert, a hunter with about 45 years of experience in the Golden Valley area. He said he had never believed in Bigfoot before seeing this photograph. At first, the group considered ordinary animals such as a bear or elk, but several details made them unsure. The group focused on several features that seemed unusual for a bear, including the figure's body shape, limbs, posture, and hair. These details made them question whether it was a known animal. They then tried to estimate its size. Joe believed the figure had passed about 12 to 16 feet from the camera. Based on that distance, the group estimated it could have been more than 7 feet tall and weighed roughly 450 to 500 pounds. This image had been sent to a university for review, but even experienced hunters still could not clearly identify what the camera had captured. Some viewers also questioned the long arm and unusual foot. However, without recreating the exact camera position, the figure's true height and distance remain uncertain. If it was not a bear, what do you think walked past Joe Hunt's trail camera? On July 7, 2025, the YouTube channel Exploring with Bear uploaded footage from another remote camping trip. This was not the couple's first camping adventure, but it may have been their last visit to this particular forest. Over time, Bear has built an audience by exploring remote and hard-to-reach places in search of the unusual, mysterious, and sometimes frightening. This trip, however, felt different.
My beautiful wife, Tiffany, has agreed to come out Bigfoot hunting and camping with me tonight. And we pulled over. There's a lake and woods all around us right now. Right now, we're out in the middle of like nowhere. So she don't really know. Anyway, where psychopaths have attacked before. This is where the tent that got mangled of mine, and I had to get a new tent and everything.
You said we were going somewhere safer.
Well, it's been a year and a half. Time heals all wounds. That's a long time. You know, what's the chances of another psychopath showing up tonight? By the way, we're on a road where there's hardly ever any cars to go down. Till now.
Bear was not alone. His wife Tiffany had joined him, making the isolation of the location feel even more significant. Bear already knew the area from an earlier experience. It was a heavily wooded region surrounded by lakes and dense tree lines, a place he openly described as Bigfoot territory. That belief was not based entirely on local stories. During a previous solo trip, Bear claimed his tent had been badly torn apart. At the time, he could not determine whether a person or an animal had caused the damage, but the incident remained in his mind. As they approached the campsite, they noticed something else unusual. 2 large trees had been bent across the trail in unnatural-looking positions. Bear immediately focused on them.
So Duber, I did another thing for you earlier. I came out here, I knew this place is out in the middle of nowhere. So, and I'm glad I did, because now it's night. So I had to remove like 2 trees out of the road, and then we'll have to look for more. But bent trees, weirdly bent trees. And that's right by the campus. And then the 2 bent trees. So wait till you see it, I'll show it to you. But it's so pretty interesting right off the bat. We got to walk through like tick magnets, and it'll be nicer. It'll be nicer to move around the camp.
Bent trees are sometimes described in Sasquatch stories as territorial markers or warnings. After setting up camp, Bear and Tiffany initially tried to keep things relaxed. Tiffany admired the lake, while Bear brought out his love box filled with snacks and comfort food. He kept the mood light, although it was clear the area was still on his mind. Bear remembered another previous visit when he had left an apple in the woods, and later recorded strange, unidentified sounds with his night vision camera. As daylight faded, the atmosphere began to change. The lights on their vehicle suddenly flickered, which seemed strange because the car was parked and turned off. Then a single gunshot sounded somewhere deep in the woods.
Oh, come on.
Just a gunshot.
Oh my gosh, no!
Oh.
Who shoots a gun at 11 o'clock at night?
That's what just crossed my mind when I heard it. Or psychopath. They're out here.
It was not extremely close, but it was not distant enough to ignore either. The sound immediately made Tiffany tense, and even Bear, who usually continued through uncomfortable situations, began showing genuine concern. Other strange details had already caught their attention earlier that day. While exploring the area, they found an old satellite dish partly buried beneath the undergrowth. Nearby were pieces of fencing and other debris scattered far from any obvious property or established trail, suggesting someone may have used the area long before their visit. The trees also continued to stand out. Several trunks appeared strangely bent or twisted, with many leaning in similar directions. Bear repeatedly pointed them out, believing there were too many to simply dismiss as coincidence. For anyone already open to the idea of Bigfoot, the forest was beginning to feel increasingly significant. Tiffany, normally composed, struggled to hide how uncomfortable she had become. She felt that something about the area was wrong, not simply frightening but unnatural. Bear continued using humor to ease the tension, but he did not strongly disagree with her. His own behavior suggested that he was becoming uncomfortable as well. His jokes gradually disappeared. His voice became quieter and his attitude turned more serious. He had spent many nights exploring cemeteries, abandoned buildings, and dark caves, yet something beneath these trees seemed to affect him differently. Whether Bigfoot had anything to do with it remains impossible to know, but that night clearly left a strong impression on Bear and Tiffany, as well as many viewers who experienced that growing sense of unease with them. Bent trees can result from natural forces or older damage, so they alone prove nothing unusual. But combined with everything else that happened, would you dismiss this campsite as coincidence, or would you avoid returning too? Uploaded on July 7th, 2025, the video comes from a newly created YouTube channel called Shadow Hollow, which appears to document the creator's early attempts at solo exploration in the woods. At the beginning, the uploader explains that he was not expecting anything unusual. He simply planned to take a casual nighttime hike, test some gear, and possibly record a few scenic shots. But the footage soon becomes much stranger. As he moves through the dense forest, his flashlight provides only limited visibility. There is no music or added narration, just the sound of leaves beneath his feet and occasional branches snapping somewhere deeper among the trees. Then, something briefly appears in the distance.
The fuck? Just gonna ignore that. There's the next path. Here it is. Right. Just gonna have to cross over this. The fuck? I saw something. I think I'm just scared, guys. The fuck was that? Strange.
At first, it is difficult to tell exactly what the camera has captured, but farther ahead, two faint, glowing eyes can be seen reflecting the flashlight. Instead of immediately running away, the figure appears to remain upright and motionless. The uploader later describes what he saw as a tall humanoid silhouette with unusual proportions. It makes no obvious sound and appears to simply watch from between the trees. Clearly unsettled, but still trying to document the moment the explorer keeps his distance. After watching for a short time, he slowly backs away and ends the recording. His reaction suggests that whatever he saw had genuinely frightened him. Part of what makes the footage unsettling is its simplicity. With no dramatic effects or elaborate editing, it simply shows a lone explorer encountering something he cannot identify. The creator says he plans to return, but could the glowing eyes belong to ordinary wildlife, or was something more unusual watching him? That's all for tonight's video. Which encounter gave you chills? Let us know in the comments below. Got your own experience? We want to hear it. And whatever you do, don't miss what's coming next.